Her wedding day was meant to be the happiest day of her life until she decided to turn it into a day of reckoning for the man who wronged her sister. Will she go through with the wedding or bring his dark secrets to light? Let's find out in Amira's story. The grand cathedral stood tall and imposing. Its stone walls adorned with white roses and gold ribbons, a symbol of the celebration that was supposed to take place. Guests filled the pew, their chatter echoing of the high ceilings. Yet there was an undercurrent of tension that no one could place, a feeling that something was not quite right. Amira adjusted her veil in the mirror, her hand trembling slightly. Her reflection stared back at her, a picture of beauty and poise. Yet her eyes held a storm of emotions. She could hear the soft murmur of her bridesmaid behind her, but their voices seemed distant, as if coming from another world. Amira, you look stunning, one of the bridesmaids said, but her words barely registered. Amira's mind was elsewhere, replaying memories she had buried deep within her heart. Memories she had hoped to forget, but knew she never could. The memories of her sister Grace, stumbling uncontrollably on their mother's shoulder, flashed before her eyes. Amira had been only 19 then, watching helplessly as her older sister's heart shattered into a million pieces. Grace has been in love, or so she thought, until the man she trusted more than anything cruelly discarded her. The man was Joshua, the same Joshua who was now waiting at the altar to marry Amira. Amira clenched her feet, her knuckles turning white. Joshua had moved on so easily, as if Grace's love meant nothing, as if her pain was inconsequential. When Joshua first asked Amira out, she had wanted nothing more than to refuse, to scream at him for what he had done to her sister. But Grace had begged her to let it go. It's not worth it, Grace had said. Her voice hallowed, but Amira could see the pain that lingered behind her sister's eyes. It was then that Amira made a vow to herself. She could make Joshua pay for what he did. She had played the perfect role, pretending to forgive him, to let the past be the past. She allowed herself to fall for his charm, his seamlessly endless love and affection. She had worn a mask of happiness, and no one, not even Grace, suspected what she was truly feeling inside. As the months passed, Amira became more determined. She was very detailed of the relationship with precision, guiding Joshua to his very moment. The moment where he would be at his most vulnerable, his most exposed, the moment he could finally understand the pain he has caused. A soft knock on the door pulled Amira from the thoughts. It was her father, his eyes brimming with pride and emotion. Are you ready, sweetheart? He asked, his voice thick with sentiment. Amira nodded, forcing a smile. She knew she was about to break her father's heart too. But she couldn't back down now. The plan was already in motion, and nothing could stop it. The walk down the aisle felt like an eternity. Every step brought her closer to the man she despised more than anyone in the world. Her eyes looked onto Joshua's, and for a moment she almost flattered. He looked at her with such love, such devotion, but then she remembered Grace, and her resolve hardened. Joshua smiled at Amira, approached, his heart racing with anticipation. She was a version in white, the embodiment of everything he had ever wanted. He had never felt so such about anything in his life. He couldn't wait to start their lives together. The priest began the ceremony, his voice solemn and reverent, but Amira barely heard the words. Her mind was focused on what she had to do next, on the words she would have to say. Words that would change everything. Do you, Joshua, take Amira to be your lawful wedded wife? To have, to have and to hold, in sickness and in health, for richer or poorer, as long as you both shall live. I do, Joshua said confidently, his eyes never leaving Amira's. He could see the tears welling up in her eyes and mistook them for tears of joy. The prince turned to Amira. Do you, Amira, take Joshua to be your lawfully wedded husband, to have and to hold, in sickness and in health, for richer or poorer, as long as you both shall live? Amira's heart pounded in her chest. This was it, the moment she had been planning for so long. She took a deep breath and opened her mouth to speak. I am sorry, but I can't do this, Amira said, her voice trembling but firm. Gasps echoed through the cathedral, disbelief spreading like wildfire among the guests. Joshua's smile flattered. What do you mean, Amira? She turned to face him fully, her eyes burning with the fury she had kept hidden for so long. I can't marry you, Joshua. Not after what you did to Grace. Silence fell over the room, the weight of her words sinking in. Joshua looked at her in confusion, his mind racing to understand what she was saying. Amira, what does Grace have to do with this? He asked, his voice barely above a whisper. Amira's voice grew stronger, fueled by years of pent-up anger. You broke her heart, Joshua. You used her, then threw her away like she was nothing. Do you even realize how much you hurt her? How much you destroyed her? Joshua's face peeled as the memories came flooding back. He had thought it was in the past, a mistake he had moved on from, but clearly Amira had not. Amira, that was years ago. I've changed. I love you, Joshua pleaded, reaching out to her, but she stepped back, her eyes cold. You may have changed, but the damage you did remains, she said, her voice eyes. I spent years watching my sister suffer because of you, and now I want you to feel a fraction of that pain. Joshua's heart sank. He had never imagined Amira could be capable of something like this. He had thought they were in love, that they were building a future together, but now it seemed everything had been a lie. The guests sat in stern silence, their eyes darting between Amira and Joshua. Some whispered to each other, while others looked on in shock, unable to process what was happening. Amira turned to congregation, her voice steady. I am sorry for ruining this day for all of you, but I can't marry someone who hurts the person I love most in this world. I can't marry someone who could destroy someone else so easily. Tears began to stream down her face, but she didn't stop. She had to finish this, to make sure Joshua understood the depth of his actions. This was never about love, Joshua. This was about revenge. Joshua's eyes withered in horror as the realization set in. You should plan this whole time? Amira nodded, her expression unreadable. Yes, I wanted you to feel what it's like to lose everything, just like Grace did. The weight of her words crashed down on Joshua like a ton of bricks. He had lost Amira, the woman he thought he would spend the rest of his life with, and it was all because of something he had done years ago, something he thought he had left behind. The room was filled with tension, the air thick with emotion. No one knew what to say, how to react to the drama unfolding before them. It was like something out of a nightmare. Amira took one last look at Joshua, her heart breaking for what could have been, but knowing this was the only way, she turned and walked down the aisle, her steps sure and unwavering. This was the closure she needed, the justice Grace deserved. Joshua watched her go, his words crumbling around him. He wanted to chase after her, to beg her to reconsider, but he knew if it was pointless. Amira had made up her mind, and nothing he could say could change that. As Amira exited the cathedral, she was met with a burst of sunlight, the brightness a stark contrast to darkness she felt inside. She had done what she came to do, but it didn't bring her the satisfaction she had hoped for. Outside the street were bustling with life, obvious to the tumult she had just left behind. Amira took a deep breath, feeling the weight of the day left from her shoulder. She had had her revenge, but it had come at a cost. She glanced back at the cathedral one last time, her heart heavy. Joshua had been wrong to hurt Grace, but in seeking revenge, she had hurt him too. She wondered if she had become just like him, capable of causing pain to those she once loved. Amira's phone buzzed in her pocket, snapping her out of her thoughts. It was Grace, her voice filled with concern. Amira, what happened? I just heard. Did you really leave Joshua at the altar? Yes, Amira replied, her voice trembling. I couldn't go. I couldn't go through with it. Grace, I couldn't marry him after everything he did to you. There was a long pause on the other end of the line. Amira could hear Grace's soft breathing, as if she was processing what had just happened. Finally, Grace spoke, her voice low and filled with emotion. Amira, you didn't have to do that for me. But I did, Amira insisted, tears welling up in her eyes again. I couldn't stand the thought of him giving away with it, of him not paying for what he did to you. I needed him to know how much he hurt you and how much it affected me too. Grace sighed deeply. Amira, I appreciate what you were trying to do, but revenge isn't the answer. It never is. It just leaves you feeling empty, like something missing. Amira leaned against a nearby wall, her strength finally giving out. She slid down to the ground, her wedding dress pulling around her. But what else could I do? Grace, I couldn't just pretend everything was okay, that what he did didn't matter. You could have forgive him, Grace said gently. Not for his sake, but for yours. Holding on to that anger and resentment, it only hurts you in the end. It doesn't change the past and it doesn't heal the wounds. Amira closed her eyes, Grace's words cutting deep. She knew her sister was right, but it was so hard to let go, to release the anger she had carried for so long. I don't know if I can forgive him, Grace. Not after everything. You don't have to do it all at once, Grace replied softly. But you have to start somewhere. You have to try, otherwise you will never find peace. Amira sat there in silence, the weight of Grace's word sinking in. She had spent so much time and energy plotting her revenge, only to realize it hadn't brought her the closure she had hoped for. Instead, it had left her feeling more lost and alone than ever. But as she listened to the gentle, loving voice of her sister, she began to understand that maybe, just maybe, Forgiveness was the only way forever.